Hello everyone! Today I'm going to show you how to create Amazon Aurora cluster with database and user management. To set everything up, we will be using ArchFormation platform. Let's get started. So, first you will need to create your project. Let's name this one data and write some description for it. Click on Next to continue. Then select AWS Cloud Provider and Terraform Provisioner. Click on Next. Here you can select a template from which you want to start. In our case, we don't need anything, so just click on Create Project. Let's wait for a moment until everything is done. And we can start. Now you will need to set up your AWS account. Select it from the menu and drag and drop it on the canvas. Here we go. Double click to open configuration and let's enter the account name. I will call this one demo and enter account ID. Click on update to continue. Let's do the same for AWS region. Okay, we placed it inside account area and let's select the region we want to use. In our case, we will be using US East 1. Click on update to continue. Now, what you need to do is to create your networking. For it, open Networking and Content Delivery tab and select VPC. Here we go. Place it inside the region. You can open configuration. In this case, everything can stay as default, but you also can change your CDR block if you need to. Click on update to continue. Now let's place VPC subnet inside VPC. This will be created as private, which will be important later. Click on update to continue. The last remaining thing is adding the database itself. Let's open database and select Amazon Aurora MySQL. Let's put it inside the VPC subnet that you have created. Here we go. Let's open its configuration and see what is in there. This is the engine version we are going to be using and database port. Also, here is the important thing. You can add your own databases in this menu. Let's add a new one. Let's create a demo database and cars database, for example. Click on update to continue. Now we can start structuring the components. Let's open the structure tab. Here you can see the structure of your repository. Let's add a new stack named networking. Okay, click on create and let's place your subnet and VPC inside of it, like so. You can see everything is here now, your subnet and VPC. And let's add a new stack named database. Okay, let's click on create and place your Aurora database inside of it. Now we can start configuring the database. Let's create some users. Let's create user named tester and give it access to demo database with read-only privileges. Also, let's create the user named driver and give it access to both cars database with all privileges and to demo database with read-only privileges. Other options are not needed for the purposes of this demo. Let's leave them as is and click on update to save the configuration. Now we can start building our project. This will generate all the needed Terraform code. Let's wait a bit until the build is started and completed. I will pause the video until everything is done. Now the build is completed and code is pushed into my GitHub account. You can also download it as a zip file if you need to. Let's now move on to GitHub and see what was created. This is the new repo that was created by ArchFormation with all the code for the selected components. You can go through the project description here. You can see both stacks, networking and database, and all of the needed information to launch your stacks, which we are going to do now. Let's copy the clone URL and move on to the console. Now we can run git clone command to get generated code. Okay, and let's open it inside Visual Studio Editor. Now we can inspect the generated stacks. So first of all, we have the networking stack. Here we have our VPC configuration and VPC subnet configuration. Those will be used inside the database stack. Let's take a look at it. First of all, we have our Aurora cluster with all the configuration that you specified during the configuration stage. Here we have a port and VPC subnet and ID, which are sourced from the networking stack. Let's now move on to database management file. It contains database management module, which will create databases and users that you specified in the configuration, and also assign the users permissions to use the databases in question. Now we can take a look how it works. This is the place where everything interesting is happening. Basically, Lambda will be created in the same VPC as our database, giving it access to it. Otherwise, Lambda would not be able to connect to the database, because it is launched in the isolated subnet. Now let's move on to Lambda invocations. Lambda invocation is a specific Terraform resource which allows you to interact with Lambda functions. This is very important in our case, because this allows us to manage internal database resources within Terraform. Here you can see that we are providing master username and password, which will allow Lambda to connect to our database. We are doing it inside input because Lambda is launched inside VPC, which does not have VPC endpoint for secret manager, meaning it cannot reach secret manager to get database password. User invocation is dependent on database invocation, making sure that users are able to get permissions for databases. So, I think this covers most of the interesting stuff inside Terraform, and let us now try it out in the cloud. Let's launch the terminal and start building Docker image, which will contain all the necessary tools needed to launch our code. Okay, give me a moment and let's start it. I will pause the video for a minute to wait until everything is completed. As you can see, the image building is complete. Now we can launch it and start deploying our infrastructure into the cloud. Okay, I will go to execute docker run. Here we go. Now we are inside the terminal of ArchFormation Docker image. Off record, I have exported my AWS credentials, and now we can start deploying. To do it, we will need to execute the run-sh script that was included in the code. Let's run it. Apply and choose environment as shared. Enter and let's see what happens. You can see that Terraform is initializing backend and starts planning and applying all of your infrastructure, starting from networking stack. I will pause the video until everything is done. Now you can see the deployment is complete. Database management function was created and it added two databases, demo and cars, and also two users, tester and driver. Let's see it in AWS console. Now we are in AWS console and we can check what resources are created. First of all, let's go to our RDS. Let's select clusters and see that we have Aurora MySQL cluster recently created. Let's check the cluster instance and see that it is running in our VPC and also the subnet that we have specified. From here we can check its configuration, verify that it is running the version we needed, and it is using the same instance type that we specified in the initial configuration. Now we can go to our Lambda management function. Let's see its configuration. So it was recently created and it is running inside the same VPC as our database. Now we can go to CloudWatch and see what happened there. Let's select one of the log streams and see what events happened. So, first event was database creation for database cars. And as you can see here, database cars was successfully created. Next event was for creation of a user named driver. Let's see what it did. You can see here configuration for databases and which privileges user will have. So, user driver was granted all privileges on database cars and also read-only privileges on database demo. Here you can see the list of privileges of user driver in SQL format. We can switch to another log stream to see the same things for user tester. Here we go. It has read-only privileges on database demo. Now the only thing remaining is removing your infrastructure. Let's do it by running the command bash run sh destroy shared. And the removal process has started. Thank you for your attention. Feel free to use this solution in your projects.